Let's show you how you can set up triggers on your agents all within Microsoft Copilot Studio right now. And this way you can easily and quickly build autonomous agents that get stuff done for you totally in the background. Let's go. So all a trigger is some kind of event that you are wanting to track that will then turn your agent on. And so if you have ever used any sort of process automation or Power Automate flows, it is the same concept. It is something that happens in a database like Dataverse, or there's some examples in here that when you receive an email or, where there's some sort of action happening in a system, you want that event, it's called, to, like I said, turn your agent on or start the process that your agent will then follow. So that is what we're talking about and showing you how to set up. Here I am within Microsoft Copilot Studio, and I'm on the overview tab of my agent. And there's not a whole lot in this agent at this point, including I do not have any triggers. And triggers, again, one more time, set up your agent to activate when certain events happen. You can see here that I don't have a trigger. If I wanted to add one, you can go ahead and click add trigger. And then on this screen is going to show a bunch of options. As well, there are more underneath here. Looks like currently there's 877 different triggers supported. You can search for them, and you'll notice that a lot of these are going to be pretty similar to Power Automate Flow triggers. But nonetheless, in our scenario, we are going to use the Dataverse when a row is added, modified, or deleted. Find the trigger that you want, select it, highlight it, click next. And then on this screen, it's going to allow you to define the trigger name. Let's go ahead and use best practices and update this accordingly. So in our scenario, we are wanting to trigger this agent anytime a new account record gets created in our Dataverse instance. And so you can also define the connections here and maybe the users or the privileges that these connections should use. If you need to switch what automatically gets set in here, you can go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and click next. It may ask you as well to create a connection there if one doesn't exist in the system. Go ahead and click create connection, sign in, no problems. And then on this screen is where you can actually define the properties for this connection. And you'll notice this is very similar to Power Automate Flow. It is almost the exact same inputs. And so the first one here is going to be the change type. This is if you want changes in Dataverse where the changes are records being added or deleted, added or modified, etc. In our simple example, we'll just say when records get added, then you're going to select the table. We're going to say the accounts table. The scope is an important one to understand in that generally in most scenarios, you probably want this to be organization. Now, just give it a thought and think about it. I'll have a link to some documentation to help as well. But the scope, you're saying that you want this agent to run for everyone in the organization. Maybe a better way of saying that is the scope determines which rows are able to be impacted. So specifically in organization, the actions are able to be taken by anyone within the environment, as opposed to say the user, the lower level, the actions are taken on rows owned by you, the person who owns this flow, as well as, business unit and parent-child business unit are those two in between levels. So that's probably a more accurate description of that. Sorry. Here you can define the columns, which in our example is not applicable when using added, but if you're doing modified and you only want it to trigger when a certain column is modified, add the schema names of those. If you want to add some filters, like, we only want to do this for active accounts, let's go ahead and do that. If you needed to delay, then also something that's important to know is this run as property down here. So let's explain these differences really quickly. So running as the flow owner is running as we're in the context of an agent, but think of it as if we're setting up a flow. This is going to run in the context of you, the agent or the flow owner. The context of the modifying user would be the person. I guess my example is poor because I'm only adding, but if somebody was modifying the record, we would want it to say run through the context of that person modifying it. Or if you wanted it to run through as the context of the owner of this account, which again, when it's being added, the modifying person and the owner is the same person, the person creating it, but nonetheless, go ahead and select the thing you want there. And then this here is what makes it special and unique to Copilot Studio, being able to add any additional instructions. One really important thing to note is that what you put in here is effectively the message that is going to be sent to your agent. So say you need a certain topic to be triggered or some sort of certain action to happen based off of this trigger, you're going to want to add that context to this portion here. And what it's basically doing is when this trigger happens, this message is getting sent to your agent. That's effectively what that final input is. I'm okay with what is pre-created in here. Go ahead and click create trigger. So after a couple of seconds, I am met with this screen here. Now, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is go to Dataverse and create an account record, and you will see this agent is triggered. You can also click close. You don't necessarily have to stay on that screen, but now we can see that this trigger is here. Let me go ahead and just show you this trigger working. So here I am within a model-driven app. I am creating a new account and just gone ahead and typed in some information. If I go ahead and click save, okay, now I have an account record created. Let's show that triggering event over in Copilot Studio. So you won't necessarily see it on this screen, but here you can see your trigger, and you can actually click on this test trigger here. Something that is really cool is, like Power Automate flows, if you're testing or wanting to kind of trigger your Power Automate, you can refer back to like previous runs. That is effectively what this screen allows you to do. And so if you have one of those triggering events selected and hit start testing, you'll notice in the test pane that it will actually send that message and allow you to test your agent all right there. Go ahead and refresh this, and you will see now shows that, hey, at 12:50, this was triggered. You can look and open up some more details, break this out into Power Automate if you want to see it there. But at this point, your trigger is completely set up and ready to go, all within Microsoft Copilot Studio. One thing that's important to know is I was having this issue where I was trying to call and refer back to that information that was passed to the agent as a part of the trigger. And there are a couple of system variables in there, one specifically that's called the trigger text, and those were completely blank. I don't know if this is a bug because triggers are so new, but what I was able to do was use that last message variable and refer to it that way. Before I did anything, the first action in my topic was to take the last message, store it as a separate variable so that I could call back on it later in case other messages were sent in the meantime, if that makes sense. Now, if you want to see more information on specifically how to set up agent flows, you're going to want to check out this video right here. Thank you so much for sticking to the end of the video. My name is Griffin Lickfeld, the host of the Citizen Developer channel, and I'm excited to connect with you in the next one.